Today I will be simulating one season in every college football game from NCAA football 2002 all the way to current day college football 25 to ultimately see which schools will reign supreme in an effort to see which schools have had the most talent through the years of this beloved series. First, we will be starting off here in NCAA football 2002. And take a look at the top 25 here in NCAA football 2002. We got Florida, Miami, Oklahoma, Texas, Florida State, Tennessee, Nebraska, Oregon, Virginia Tech, Kansas State, Georgia Tech, Washington, LSU, Michigan, Northwestern, South Carolina, Clemson, Oregon State, Illinois, UCLA, Mississippi State, Purdue, Colorado, Notre Dame, and Pitt. And the top players of the nation are going to be Julius Peppers, Deshaun Foster, Quentin Jammer, Antonio Bryant, Ed Reed, Brian McKinney, Alex Brown, Mike Pearson, Jabbar Gaffney, William Green, Mike Williams, John Anderson, Roy Williams from Oklahoma, Rocky Kalmus, Lito Shepard, Seth McKinney, Roy Williams from Texas, Dennis Weatherby, Terrence Metcalf. Take a look at these names. These are some names we haven't seen in a long time, and I can't wait to see which school is going to come out on top. So here in Conference Championship Week, we have 10-1 Tennessee at number 3 in the nation taking on 8-3 number 21 Alabama. We have number 5 Nebraska taking on number 8 Oklahoma. Taking a look at the top 25, we got an undefeated Virginia Tech at 11-0, an undefeated Michigan State at 11-0, and neither one of these two teams have a conference championship game. So I'm pretty anxious to see if Tennessee could jump one of the two. So we simulate the SEC chip. Tennessee bumps off Alabama 24-16. This Nebraska-Oklahoma game, I feel like, this is strictly for the conference championship. Nebraska gets to win 24-18 over Oklahoma. Toledo Marshall has no impact over what we're looking for whatsoever. Lee Suggs from Virginia Tech is going to be this year's Heisman winner. He had almost 300 carries for 1,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6.2 yards a carry. Take a look at some of the other awards here. The best quarterback goes to Nate Hibble from Oklahoma. Best running back, Lee Suggs. Obviously, he won the Heisman. Best wide receiver goes to John Floyd of UL Monroe. 95 catches, 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns. JT Augenbaugh wins the best offensive lineman from TCU. Teddy Lehman wins defensive MVP, 98 tackles, 4 sacks, 4 picks, 4 fumble recoveries. Best defensive lineman goes to Tanaka Scott of Middle Tennessee State. Teddy Lehman also wins best linebacker. Best DB goes to Derek Strait of Oklahoma. Best kicker goes to Tim Duncan of Oklahoma. Coach of the year goes to Nebraska. It looks like Oklahoma had a fairly good year. Now take a look at the bowl games here. In the Orange Bowl, BCS bowl game, Nebraska taking on Georgia Tech. Sugar Bowl is going to be Tennessee, Florida, which means Tennessee did not jump any of the other teams. Miami's going to be taking on UCLA in the Fiesta Bowl. And the national championship is going to be Michigan State taking on Virginia Tech. So take a look at the BCS bowl games. Nebraska bumped off Georgia Tech 38-24. Tennessee narrowly beats Florida 42-39. Miami routes UCLA 36-15. And now it's all time for the national championship game. Michigan State, Virginia Tech. My money's on Virginia Tech. Right now, pause the video. Tell me who you guys think is going to win this first natty. We're going to simulate the game. And Michigan State is going to be our very first national champion. 30-24 over Virginia Tech. I definitely didn't have Michigan State winning the natty in any of these games on my bingo card. And I'm pretty sure this is probably going to be their only one. But they got it done in our inaugural sim. Now here we are, NCAA football 2003. Joey Harrington on the cover. Let's get to it. So top 25 here in NCAA football 2003. We got Miami, Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Florida State, Florida, Washington State, Oregon, Colorado, Nebraska, Washington, Ohio State, Georgia, Virginia Tech, LSU, Louisville, Marshall, Penn State, Michigan, South Carolina, Maryland, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Michigan State, our defending champs, and Auburn. Now take a look at the best players in the nation at the time. EJ Henderson of Maryland is the lone 99 on the game. We got Mike Doss from Ohio State, William Joseph, Brett Williams, Rex Grossman is the best quarterback, Roy Williams is the best wide receiver. Best corner goes to Dennis Weatherby, Byron Leftwich is a 97, Dwayne White, Nathan Vasher, Andre Woolfolk, Charles Rogers, Ken Dorsey, Anthony Floyd, Eugene Wilson, Montre Holland, Damon Duval, Marcus Trufant, Troy Polamalu's a 95, Seth Marler, Derek Johnson, a beast at linebacker, Corey Redding, Clifton Smith, Andre Johnson, one of the greatest wide receivers in Miami history, Eric Steinbach, Darnell Dockett. I mean, the list goes on. We got quite a bit of 95s. Lee Suggs, who won the Heisman for us last year in 2002, is back as a 94. So here we are, Conference Championship Week here in NCAA Football 2003, and all 3 Conference Championship games directly affect what could happen in the National Championship. Number 5 Marshall at 10-1 is taking on Northern Illinois. Number 1 Oklahoma has to beat Kansas State. And then we got number 2 Ole Miss taking on number 3 Florida. So I had to come double check just to see if my memory is bad or not. But Eli Manning is the quarterback of Ole Miss here in NCAA football 2003. As a whole, his team is not even that great. There's only 4 90s on the team, and Eli Manning isn't even the best player. So we're just going to go in order of the games. First game of the day at 3:30 in the afternoon on the 7th of December. Marshall beats the crap out of NIU. We knew that was coming. Now we got the 5 o'clock game, 12-7. You see it. Oklahoma taking on Kansas State, and they take care of business 52-10. And this is probably going to be the closest game. Number 2 versus number 3. Ole Miss taking on Florida. Before we find out who won that SEC championship game, we see here that Jason White of Oklahoma wins the Heisman Trophy. He threw for nearly 5,000 yards, 54 touchdowns, 300 for 507. And Florida actually got the win, beating number 2 Ole Miss. So Florida jumps up to number 2. Oklahoma's at number 1. Ole Miss drops to number 5. So at number 4, Marshall isn't even in a BCS bowl. They're in the Motor City Bowl in Pontiac, Michigan, 11-1, taking on 8-4 Bowling Green. The Sugar Bowl, Ole Miss is taking on Bum SU. In the Rose Bowl, Ohio State is taking on UCLA. In the Orange Bowl, Tennessee will be taking on Miami. In number 1, Oklahoma will be taking on number 2, Florida. 12-1, 11-2. So Byron Leftwich continues his amazing season. Marshall goes 12-1, winning their bowl game. In the Rose Bowl, Ohio State bumps off UCLA by 10. In the Sugar Bowl, Ole Miss gets the revenge on the Florida school, bumping off Bum SU 24-21. In the Orange Bowl, Miami beats Tennessee 42-35. And last but not least, the Fiesta Bowl is this year's national championship venue. Florida edges out then number 1 Oklahoma 21-20. Florida is going to end the season as the number 1 team in the nation. Oklahoma picks up their second loss, and we have our second champion, the Florida Gators. Moving on to our next game, NCAA football 2004 with Carson Palmer on the cover. Checking out the preseason top 25, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Miami, Texas, Kansas State, Auburn, Virginia Tech. We got UGA, USC, Michigan, NC State, Pitt, Florida State, Washington, Maryland, LSU, Tennessee, Virginia, Florida, Notre Dame, Arizona State, Bama, Purdue, Texas A&M, and Wisconsin. Now, for the first time, we have a Heisman watch list. Ohio State sophomore Maurice Clarett is going to be leading the way, followed by Coley Pickett of Washington, Phillip Rivers of North Carolina State, Roy Williams of Texas, and L. Roberson of Kansas State. So take a look at the best players in the nation at the time. Roy Williams of Texas is a 99 with Chris Gamble of Ohio State. Rashawn Woods of Oklahoma is a 98. Tommy Harris is a 98. Sean Andrews a 98. Reggie Williams of Washington is a 97. Derek Johnson is a 97. Nathan Vasher, Rod Davis, Kellen Winslow. Rest in peace to GOAT. Sean Taylor's a 97. Nick Leckie. We got Robert Gallery, who I remember was a lot of hype with him coming out of college. Nate Keating, Shannon Snell, Carlos Dansby, Mike Williams is a 96 with Teddy Lehman, Brendan Everidge, Derek Strait, Will Smith, Mike Nugent, Vince Wilfork. It's always fun coming back to these older games and seeing who were the best players in the nation. We got Larry Fitz, top 5 dead or alive in all the receivers all time. Eli Manning is up to a 95. Maurice Clarett is a 95. Let's see if Eli Manning can get Ole Miss to play at that high level he had him playing in NCAA 03. So here in NCAA 04, the conference championship week is not that dramatic. None of these games are going to directly affect what we have happen in the national championship. NIU won, Kansas State won, Auburn lost to Florida. Darren Sproles is going to be this season's Heisman Memorial Trophy winner. 265 carries, 1,600 yards, 18 catches, 27 total touchdowns. NIU's M. Turner finished second. I forgot to do this in 03, but let's take a look at the award winners. We got Lydell Ross. Of Ohio State winning the Maxwell. Best quarterback goes to Timmy Chang of Hawaii. Best running back goes to Lydell Ross. Best wide receiver goes to Jeremiah Cochran of Hawaii. He had a hell of a season. David Farrell of Navy is going to win the best O-lineman. The Bednarik goes to Marcus Cooper of Washington. The best D-lineman goes to Lennon Smith. Marquise Cooper wins best linebacker. The Thorpe goes to Hiram Peters of Hawaii. Billy Bennett wins the Groza at UGA. And Kansas State's coach is going to be the coach of the year at 13-1. So take a look at the bigger bowl games and the BCS bowl games. We got Auburn, Purdue. We got Georgia, North Carolina State in the Peach Bowl. Rose Bowl, we got Oregon State versus Miami. Orange Bowl, we got Boston College taking on Iowa. Cotton Bowl, Ole Miss taking on Oklahoma. The Fiesta Bowl, we got Kansas State taking on 8-5 Florida. And in the national championship, the Nokia Sugar Bowl, 12-0 Ohio State taking on 12-0 Maryland. So take a look at the bowl results here. NC State beats Georgia. Miami beats Oregon State. Boston College loses to Iowa. Ole Miss beats Oklahoma. Florida actually gets blown out by Kansas State. And now, last but not least, Maryland, Ohio State, national championship. And in the end, Ohio State is going to be the national champs, 13-0. They won 29-20. Maryland was shut out in the first and the third. They put up 10 in the fourth. Maurice Claret went crazy, 24 for 119, 2 touchdowns, 31 yards through the air as well. Maryland had a dog on the defensive side of the ball, 4 tackles, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, but in the end, it just wasn't enough. So here we are in our 4th installment, NCAA Football 05. Larry Fitz on the cover. Let's jump into it. So Heisman watch list here in 05. We got Matt Leinart, Darren Sproles, who actually just won it last game. We got Jason White, who won it 2 games ago. We got Brad Smith of Missouri, and we got Cardinal Cadillac Williams of Auburn. Take a look at our top 25. USC, Oklahoma, LSU, Georgia, Miami, Florida State, Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida, Tennessee, Auburn, Virginia, Kansas State, Clemson, Iowa, Nebraska, Louisville, West Virginia, North Carolina State, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Cal, Maryland, and Utah. So here in NCAA Football 05, NIU is number 6 in the nation at 10-1. They've been in the mix a lot here. This Florida LSU game directly affects what happens in the Natty. NIU probably not going to sneak up there, but we're going to go ahead and sim this Florida game first. And LSU takes care of business. They had to put up 17 in the fourth quarter to beat Florida. Florida scored late in this game, so Florida really just kind of wet the bed here and just couldn't get it done. Lorenzo Booker of Bum SU is going to win the Heisman by a landslide. 273 carries, 1,755 yards, 14 touchdowns with another 4 on the ground. Darren Sproles almost won back-to-back Heisman in this sim. So along with the Heisman, Booker wins the Maxwell. The Bednarik goes to Donnie Matika of Washington. Best quarterback goes to James Killian of Tulsa. The Doak Walker, Lorenzo Booker. Tony Jeffrey wins the best wide receiver out in Texas, which is not crazy numbers. 46 catches, 863 yards, 12 touchdowns. Maurice Avery, 66 for 1,112 touchdowns, 64 for 1083 for 9 touchdowns. Looks like there's a little bit of favoritism there in that vote, but it is what it is. Garrett Mills of Tulsa wins the best tight end. Best lineman goes to Jake Verstraete. The Remington goes to Mike Johnson of Kansas State. Matika wins the best D lineman as well. Best linebacker, Derek Graves of Auburn. The Thorpe goes to Darnell Bing of USC. The Groza goes to Todd Pegram of Texas A&M. Best punter goes to Patrick Fisher. Best returner, no shocker, goes to Reggie Bush. And the coach of the year goes to NIU with them finishing 11-1 in the regular season. Take a look at the BCS bowl games. USC will be taking on Michigan State. Auburn will be taking on Texas. In the Sugar Bowl, West Virginia will be taking on Florida State. And in the Orange Bowl, Oklahoma is in back-to-back natties taking on LSU. So USC beats Michigan State. Auburn loses to Texas. West Virginia loses to Florida State. And last but not least, in the natty, Oklahoma loses by 17 to LSU, who finishes undefeated 13-0. In this game, Joseph Adai, 23 for 93, 2 touchdowns. He also had 23 yards through the air. For Oklahoma, Pleasant was their best player. He had a tackle, which was for loss, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery, but LSU was just too much for Oklahoma in this one. And so far, in 4 different games, we have 4 different champions. NCAA 06, we got Desmond Howard on the cover. Let's take a look at this game's college football landscape. So Heisman watch list here in 06, we got Matt Leinart, Adrian Peterson, Reggie Bush, Vince Young, and Ted Ginn Jr. Take a look at the top 25, USC, Tennessee, Iowa, Oklahoma, Florida State, Texas, Michigan, Louisville, LSU, Virginia Tech, Miami, Ohio State, Florida, Georgia, Purdue, Bama, Boston College, Boise State, Arizona State, Auburn, Texas Tech, Virginia, Pitt, UTEP, and lastly, Georgia Tech. So here in NCAA 06, we have the most conference championship games that we've ever had in a sim so far. Nebraska, Texas directly affects the national championship. Tennessee, Auburn probably is going to have a say-so. Virginia Tech, Florida State. UTEP is even sitting at number 6. So a lot of wins and losses could swing the pendulum a bunch of different ways right now. So first, we'll go ahead and sim this NIU game, and they actually lost to Bowling Green. They haven't lost a lot of games here. They've been pretty competitive. Then we got number 11 Auburn taking on number 5 Tennessee. Number 5 Tennessee takes care of business. Number 3 Texas taking on number 1 Nebraska. Texas being number 3 with 2 losses is crazy, and they get the big upset over Nebraska, 38-31. Nebraska had to put up 21 in the fourth quarter to try to win it, but in the end they just ran out of time. Vince Young played his ass off. He did throw 2 picks, but 15 for 22, 229 yards, 3 touchdowns. On the ground, Selvin Young, 32 for 126 and a touchdown. Thomas had a touchdown as well. Then we got Virginia Tech taking on Florida State, and Virginia Tech bumps off Florida State in OT. What a game. 29-26 is going to be your final score. Marcus Vick, 14 for 26, 208 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Sexton from Florida State, 22 for 33, 248, 2 touchdowns, and that third pick. And then UTEP goes down to Southern Miss, so they can't sneak into a BCS Bowl or even a national championship. So Matt Leinart is going to win the Heisman over Reggie Bush by a landslide at that. 3,900 yards, 51 total touchdowns. Behind Matt Leinart was Reggie Bush, Vince Young, Haas from Oregon State, and Humes from Virginia Tech. Matt Leinart also wins the Maxwell. The Bednarik is going to go to Dallas Sarts of USC. Matt Leinart wins the best quarterback. Dontrell Moore wins the Dope Walker from New Mexico. Fun fact about Dontrell Moore, he ran for 1,000 yards for 4 straight seasons and never sniffed the NFL. There was a whole documentary on it and everything. Best wide receiver, Mike Haas. Best tight end goes to Joey Hewlin. Best O-lineman, John Brost. Remington goes to John Wilson. Lombardi goes to Will Thompson of UGA. Dallas Sarts also wins best linebacker. Daniel Bullocks wins the Thorpe. Gary Samisia from Florida State wins the Groza. Best punter, Tom Malone. Best returner, Reggie Bush. And coach of the year goes to Bowling Green. And with the bowl games all set, Sugar Bowl is going to be Pitt taking on Tennessee. Michigan, USC in the Fiesta Bowl. Orange Bowl is going to be Nebraska, Virginia Tech. And the Rose Bowl is going to be the Natty. Number 2 UGA taking on number 1 Texas. All right, guys. So bowl results are in. Tennessee beats Pitt. USC had a shootout with Michigan to come out on top by 10. Nebraska tops Virginia Tech. And last but not least, in that Natty, Texas beats UGA by 5, 27-22. Hall for Texas had a great game, 9 tackles, a sack, and a pick. Taylor for UGA, 7 tackles, 2 for loss, a sack, an interception, and a forced fumble. So them boys was playing defense. And the streak for different champs in different games continues. Moving on to NCAA football 07. All right, boys, last game on PS2, NCAA 07. Reggie Bush on the cover. Let's take a look at the college football landscape. The Heisman watch list for this year, we got Brady Quinn of Notre Dame, Adrian Peterson at Oklahoma, Troy Smith at Ohio State, Chris Leak at Florida, and Brian Brom of Louisville. Top 25, Ohio State, Texas, Notre Dame, USC, LSU, Florida, Auburn, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Louisville, Miami, Florida State, Penn State, Michigan, Cal, Georgia, Iowa, Tennessee, Arizona State, Nebraska, Tech, Texas Tech, Clemson, Bama, Georgia Tech. Here in NCAA 07, Conference Championship Week, not as much on the line here for the games. I mean, if Nebraska bumps off Oklahoma and Georgia Tech bumps off Florida State, you know, some things can happen here, but everything else is pretty much, you know, not mattering as much. Let's go ahead and sim this one game. Florida State beats Georgia Tech, no real sweat off their back. So now they need Nebraska to bump off Oklahoma. That can't happen. Oklahoma blows out Nebraska 42-28. So the Heisman winner for this year is going to be Troy Smith. Wins by a landslide over John David Booty, Jared Zabransky, Bo Mar, and Albert Young. Shout out to Jersey. Troy Smith, 2,300 yards passing, almost 1,000 yards on the ground, 35 total touchdowns. Troy Smith also wins the Maxwell. The Bednarik goes to Brandon Archer. Best quarterback, Troy Smith. Darren McFadden wins the Dope Walker. Best wide receiver goes to Mario Uratia of Louisville. Best tight end, Dale Thompson of USC. Kirk Barton is going to win the best O-lineman at Ohio State. Doug Danish of Ohio State wins the other lineman award to Remington. The Lombardi goes to Gaines Adams of Clemson. Brandon Archer wins the best linebacker. Jarius Neal wins the Thorpe. Kyle Schlichter wins the Groza. Best punter goes to Mike Null. Best returner goes to Chancey Stuckey of Clemson. And Oklahoma's coach is going to win the coach of the year. So in the Rose Bowl, we got Louisville taking on Arizona State. Orange Bowl, we got Bum SU taking on West Virginia. Sugar Bowl, we got Auburn taking on Tech. Fiesta Bowl, we got USC taking on Iowa. And in the national championship, we got Oklahoma taking on Ohio State. Now, if Ohio State gets a win here, they would be the first team to have multiple championships within this sim. So take a look at the BCS Bowl games. Louisville absolutely beat the brakes off of Arizona State. West Virginia beats Bum SU. I'd love to see them lose. Virginia Tech beats Auburn. And USC is beat by Iowa, leaving the national championship game. Oklahoma, Ohio State. And Oklahoma bumps off Ohio State. So we continue the streak of having a different national champion in every single game. So what a game. Troy Smith had a weird one. Bomar, 249 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Troy Smith, 103 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Adrian Peterson went crazy on the ground, 21 for 178, 2 touchdowns. Pittman from Ohio State, 30 for 221, no touchdowns, a touchdown for Troy Smith on the ground. So Troy Smith had 4 total touchdowns. This just looked like it was arguably one of the best national championship games of all time. NCAA football 08, our first game on the PS3. I'm excited to see the college landscape of this one. So according to NCAA football 08, John David Booty is a Q-Dog. But the Heisman watch list is going to be Darren McFadden, John David Booty, Brian Brom, Colt Brennan, Steve Slayton. Preseason top 25, USC, Michigan, LSU, Florida, Texas, West Virginia, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Virginia Tech, Arkansas, Louisville, Ohio State, Auburn, Nebraska, Tennessee, Cal, Penn State, Georgia, UCLA, Rutgers, Florida State, TCU, Boise State, Texas A&M, and Boston College. And something I actually forgot to do, boys, was take a look at who the best players are. So we got Sam Baker as the best player in the game. Left tackle for USC, Dan Connor, Penn State, Brandon Graham, Darren McFadden, Glenn Dorsey, Brian Brom, Travis Beckham, Steve Slayton, Keith Rivers, Frank Oakham, Jonathan Heffney, Jake Long, Kenny Phillips, Colt Brennan, rest in peace, Deshaun Jackson, D-Jax, 98 speed, Antoine Cason, we got Vince Hall, Xavier Adibi, Lawrence Jackson, Jamar Adams, we got Calais Campbell, Derek Harvey, Barry Richardson, Quentin Groves, Josh Barrett, Pat White, Chris Long, Earl Bennett, Ray Maluga, Taylor Mays, Cedric Ellis. So we got some dogs on this game that, you know, names we haven't heard in a long time. Shout out to James Laurinaitis as well. So here in NCAA 08 Conference Championship Week, Virginia Tech's number 2, Auburn's number 4, and those are the only 2 games that really have an impact on a national championship. So let's go on and simulate this Virginia Tech game, and they get blown out by Wake Forest in this one, 49-17. So that's opening up the door for a team to get into the Natty. Auburn, they're taking on the number 16 Florida Gators, and Florida Gators bumped them off. So it looks like we're probably going to see maybe the 1-3 team jump into that national championship game. So the favorites right now in that one would be USC in West Virginia. This year's Heisman winner is going to be Darren McFadden by a landslide, not even close. 245 carries, 1,800 yards, 17 touchdowns on the ground, another 5 touchdowns through the air. He beat out Orr from Virginia Tech. He beat out Tebow at UF. He beat out Mike Hart from Michigan and John David Booty at USC. Award winners, the Maxwell goes to Darren McFadden. Bednarik goes to Brinkley of South Carolina. O'Brien goes to Colt McCoy of Texas. Doak Walker goes to Darren McFadden. Best receiver goes to Morgan of Virginia Tech. Best tight end to Brown of Tennessee. Best O-lineman goes to Daniels of Auburn. Remington goes to Justice of Wake. Lombardi goes to Harvey of UF. Best linebacker goes to Brinkley of South Carolina. The Thorpe goes to Davis of Duke. The Groza goes to Pat McAfee. Best punter goes to Trapasso of Ohio State. Best returner goes to James of UF. And they didn't tell us who the coach of the year was. Take a look at the major bowl games. The Rose Bowl, we got Ohio State taking on Arkansas. We got Florida taking on Boise State in the Sugar Bowl. The Fiesta Bowl, we got Texas taking on Virginia Tech. Orange Bowl, we got Wake Forest taking on Michigan. And in that Natty, we got West Virginia 12-0 taking on USC, also 12-0. And the streak of different Natty winners in each and every game is going to continue. All right, guys, so this is the first game that we could possibly get some gameplay in. 12-0 versus 12-0 in the Louisiana Superdome, man. You know what time it is. This is going to be a good game, or it could be a blowout. So we're not going to be able to jump into this one. It's 34-7, and that's going to be your final score. And the West Virginia Mountaineers are going to be the 07 BCS National Champs. John David Booty played terribly, actually. No touchdowns, 1 pick. On the ground, Chauncey Washington actually had a great game. Through the air, nobody was going to have a good game with the way he played. Take a look at West Virginia. Pat White, 14 for 24, touchdown. He threw 3 picks. That's actually disgusting. On the ground, Steve Slayton, 35 for 108, 2 touchdowns, a touchdown for Tito Gonzalez. Pat White, 9 for 46. Through the air, Darrell Jala, 5 for 94. The man with the plan, Darius Raynaud, he was 4 for 50 with a touchdown. I thought we were going to be able to jump in and see some gameplay, but West Virginia had other plans on the NCAA 09. NCAA 09, Matt Ryan on the cover. So let's take a look at who's the best players in the nation. James Laurinaitis and Tim Tebow are the lone 99s. Ray Maluga, Pat White is back, Jasper Brinkley is back, Michael Orr, blindside, Duke Robinson, Chris Wells, Chase Daniel, Myron Roll, Big Jersey, Andre Smith, George Selvey, Taylor Mays, Michael Crabtree, Graham Harrell, man, these two were a cold tandem back in the day. Sean Lee, Cowboys legend, Nick Harris, Marcus Freeman, Alex Boone, Michael Jenkins, William Moore, Herman Johnson, Mitch King, Darnell Ellerby, No Sean Marino, Percy Harvin. Oh my goodness, but Cam Chancellor, it's some dogs out here on this roster, bruh. Heisman watch list, Tim Tebow, naturally. We got Chris Wells, Percy Harvin, Chase Daniel. Last but not least, Michael Crabtree. Top 25, UGA, Oklahoma, Ohio State, USC, Florida, LSU, Missouri, West Virginia, Wisconsin, Texas, Clemson, Texas Tech, Penn State, Arizona State, Kansas, Auburn, Virginia Tech, Illinois, Tennessee, BYU, South Carolina, Alabama, Oregon, Cincinnati, Wake Forest. So here in NCAA 09 Conference Championship Week, man, Florida State's number 4, Florida's number 6, Oklahoma's number 5. I hate when the number 1 and number 2 team don't have to get no conference championship game smoke, but it is what it is, bruh. Colt McCoy's going to be this season's Heisman, and he won by a landslide. He threw for 3,800. He ran for 338. 49 total touchdowns. Chris Wells, Chase Daniel, Noshawn Marino, and Everett were all behind him. Check out the awards. Colt McCoy wins the Maxwell. Benedict goes to Marcus Freeman of Ohio State. Chad, this is 2 games in a row, and I'm just realizing this is Notre Dame's head coach. I had no clue he was that nice. O'Brien goes to Colt McCoy. Doak Walker goes to Chris Wells. Best wide receiver, Austin Coley. Damn, that's a name I haven't heard in a minute. He was nice. 101 catches, 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns. Best tight end, Chase Kaufman. Best O-lineman, Alex Boone. Remington, Jim Cordell. Moulton Hopkins wins the Lombardi, 68 tackles, 14 sacks, and a pick at left end. Best linebacker goes to Kaluka Amavia of USC. 8 sacks, 2 picks, a forced fumble, 2 touchdowns. Thorpe goes to Brian Payton of Oregon State. 2 sacks, 8 picks, 2 forced fumbles. The Groza goes to Aaron Petrie. The best punter goes to Dan Titchener of Nebraska. Best returner goes to Brad Lester. So take a look at bowl games here, man. Rose Bowl, Ohio State, BYU. Sugar Bowl, LSU, Wisconsin. Fiesta Bowl, Oklahoma, Clemson. Orange Bowl, Virginia, Texas. And for the first time in this sim, for back-to-back games, we have a Natty rematch being run back. Same course of action, USC number 1, West Virginia number 2. Pat White is leading his squad. If West Virginia wins, they will be the first team to have multiple national championships in this sim. If USC wins, the streak continues of having a different champion every single season. So leading up to the Natty, the Orange Bowl, Texas beats Virginia. Fiesta Bowl, Oklahoma beats Clemson. Sugar Bowl, LSU beats Wisconsin. Ohio State beats BYU in the Rose Bowl. And now it's time to jump into this national championship game. Let's get it. So here we are at the Orange Bowl, Miami, Florida. You know what time it is. BCS National Championship, 1 versus 2. Let's not waste no time. Let's get right into it. So picking up in the 4th quarter here, West Virginia is down 8 points. The start of the 4th quarter, Pat White back to pass, surveying the field. He has a man, his check down, he breaks the tackle, and he's into the end zone. They're a 2-point conversion away from tying this thing up. So as expected, West Virginia does keep the offense out on the field. Pat White is in the shotgun, and he's going to go with a quick slant, and we have a tie ball game here in this Natty. Now inside the red zone, we have USC with 3:40 left in this ball game. John David Booty's going to come out in the I form. He's going to toss that to the right. Number 4 has a lot of green in front of him. Touchdown, Trojans. USC runs away with this one late. 41-24 is going to be your final score. And this is the pretty much the play that took it over the top. After that, Pat White threw a pick, and USC just could not lose. And we have yet again a brand new national champion. Take a look at the stats. Pat White, 20 for 32, 267, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Man, I said they had John David Booty, but I was stuck in the old game. But Aaron Court was their quarterback, a touchdown and a pick, 6 for 10. But then Mitch Mustang came in 9 for 15, a touchdown and a pick for 172. That was a weird dynamic. Maybe he got hurt. Joe McKnight, 22 for 116, 2 touchdowns. Stephon Johnson, 6 for 26. Mitch Mustang had a touchdown on the ground as well. Noel Devine for West Virginia, 21 for 822. Pat White, 9 for 43, no touchdowns there. Receiving wise, Brandon Hogan for West Virginia, 8 for 109, 3 touchdowns. He was the lone star, really, USC. Pat Turner, 4 for 81, a touchdown. Ronald Johnson also was 2 for 78 in a touchdown. USC is your champs. Moving on to NCAA Football 10. All right, boys, here we are, NCAA Football 10. So the Heisman watch list, we got Tim Tebow again with Sam Bradford, Colt McCoy, Javid Best, and Darryl Clark. Top 25, we got Florida, Oklahoma, Texas, USC, LSU, Bama, Ohio State, Penn State, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, Ole Miss, Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, Cal, North Carolina, BYU, Georgia Tech, TCU, Florida State, Nebraska, Iowa, West Virginia, Utah, and Kansas. Take a look at who the best players in the nation are. We got Taylor Mays, we got Jermaine Gresham, Sam Bradford, Tim Tebow. Those are your 99s. Colt McCoy, Eric Berry. We got Saren Black, Brandon Spike, Sean Lee, Dez Bryant, Russell Okung. We got Gerald McCoy, Ndamukong Suh, Sergio. This is honestly one of the best draft classes, you know what I mean, that you could have had. Javid Best is at 96. And if I'm not mistaken, Julio Jones is one of the better receivers. You got Jordan Shipley, Aurelius Ben. Odin Tate is in 93. Brandon LaFell is in 93. Best running backs. We got Javid Best, Noel Devine. We got CJ Spiller, Kendall Hunter, DeMarco Murray. Got Joe McKnight. It's really some dogs on this roster, bro. So conference championship week here in NCAA 10. So we got number 1 Florida. If they get upset by Ole Miss, they'll be out. And number 2 versus 3. So this is the second time in this sim Nebraska and Texas is 2 versus 3 in their conference championship. And then those are the main games. So let's see if Ole Miss can get the job done versus Florida. And they cannot. Tim Tebow and the boys are simply too much. I pretty much think that Florida is going to win the Natty because that's how good this team was back then. But then we got Nebraska taking on Texas 2 versus 3. And Texas gets to win 26-16. Heisman is going to be Tim Tebow. He beat out Dan Lefevre, and this was a super duper close race. You got Briscoe from Kansas, Colt McCoy, who's already won one in this sim, and you got Tommy Reesing of Kansas. Then award winners, Tebow gets to Maxwell, the Benedict goes to Navarro Bowman. Tim Tebow gets to O'Brien, the Doak Walker, Andre Bird of Navy. Best receiver goes to Desmond Briscoe of Kansas. The Mackey goes to Gerald Harris of Ole Miss. Will Barker gets the best O-lineman at Virginia. Remington goes to Eric Jobe. The Lombardi, Desmond Moses of Tulane. Best linebacker, Mark Herzlich of Boston College. The Thorpe goes to Taylor Mays of USC. Alex Henry wins the Groza out of Nebraska. Jeremy Boone wins the best punter of the Penn State. Yusua Amanin is going to be the best returner out of Stanford. The bowl games are set. Rose Bowl, we got Penn State taking on Oregon. We got Oklahoma taking on Utah in the Sugar Bowl. Fiesta Bowl, we got USC taking on Boise State. Orange Bowl, we got Virginia Tech taking on West Virginia. And in that national championship, we got Texas taking on the Florida Gators. Like I said, Tim Tebow and them boys is going to be a long game for Texas because take a look here. Tebow, who won the Heisman, 3,700 yards, 37 touchdowns, only 5 picks. Jeff Demps, 812 on the ground for 6 touchdowns. Deontay Thompson, 88 for 11-17, 13 touchdowns. Colt McCoy, 3,200 yards, 23 touchdowns, 14 picks. Kind of disgusting. On the ground, Johnson, 882 yards, 12 touchdowns. Williams is their top receiver, 78 for 966 and 8 touchdowns. And they got some dogs on defense as well, but if Colt McCoy turns the ball over like this versus UF, they're going to get blown out. So it's BCS Bowl games, Fiesta Bowl, Boise State loses to USC. Virginia Tech blanks West Virginia in the Orange Bowl. In the Sugar Bowl, Oklahoma loses to Utah. And then in the Rose Bowl, Oregon beats Penn State by 2 scores. Time for that Natty. All right, boys, the field is messed up a little bit in this one, but hopefully we still get some good gameplay. This is what happens when you are playing on the emulator. Sometimes the assets don't load in the greatest. All right, guys, so no need to even load in. It was a landslide. 48-20 is going to be your final score. We don't get any on-field theatrics or anything like that. That's tough. But Tim Tebow, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, 25 for 36. John Brantley even came off the bench to play. Colt McCoy, 21 for 44, 357 yards, a touchdown, no picks though. On the ground, 53 yards for Cody Johnson and a touchdown. For Florida, Tim Tebow led them with carries. Riley Cooper led them in rushing yards with a touchdown. Racist Riley Cooper is what I call him. Receiving wise, David Nelson, 10 for 166 for touchdowns. All 4 of Tim Tebow's touchdowns. Deontay Thompson, 7 for 129. Racist Riley Cooper, 4 for 62. Texas, James Kirkendall, 7 for 201 and a touchdown. He might have got himself drafted with that performance. I ain't gonna lie. Defensively, Blake Gideon led all Texas in tackles. No sacks on Tebow. Tebow also didn't throw any picks. For Florida, though, tackle leader is going to be A.J. Jones with Jermaine Cunningham. They did get 1 sack on Colt McCoy. They didn't catch a pick. They didn't force any fumbles or anything like that, but they did dominate this game. On to the next one. Future USR here. I didn't realize it until after I had already recorded and ended the video. The Florida Gators are our very first multi-championship team in the sim. I missed it. My apologies. Let's get back to the video. NCAA Football 11, my personal favorite of all time in the series, has some of the best lighting, some of the best gameplay. This game was amazing. Let's jump into it. Technically the best players in the nation, no 99s this year. But at 98, we got Andrew Luck, Patrick Peterson, Mark Ingram. We got the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton, Michael James, DeMarco Murray, Michael Floyd, Marvin Austin, Case Keenum, AJ Green, Big Dog Cam Newton as a 97, Nick Fairley, Julio Jones, Gabe Karimi. We got Noah Devine, Jake Locker. This was another fun era of college football. You see Terrell Pryor, Deion Lewis. I mean, it was some dogs out here, man. So top teams, this is when Alabama's dominance really started to take over. So if they run off a few in a row, I wouldn't be surprised. Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, Boise State, Florida, Virginia Tech, TCU, Nebraska, Iowa are the top 10. Wisconsin, Georgia Tech, USC, Miami, Oklahoma, Pitt, LSU, Penn State, Oregon State, Arkansas, Florida State, North Carolina, Utah, Cincy, and Houston. The Heisman watch list: Mark Ingram, Case Keenum, Kellen Moore, Terrell Pryor, Jake Locker. This is the year Mark Ingram actually won it, so let's sim it and see what happens. Conference championship week, we got Bama taking on UGA. They're number 2 in the nation. That's the only game that directly impacts the national championship. Let's see if UGA can get that upset. And they, no, 41-13. Like I said, this is Bama's like villain arc for real. This is where shit got spooky for people. So Case Keenum, the first group of 5 player that's going to win a Heisman here on this landslide. Wasn't even close. 4,400 yards, 500 yards on the ground, 61 total touchdowns. This has absolutely nothing to do with the Natty, but Navy made the Orange Bowl, taking on Miami. Holy shit, they're number 6 in the nation. Case Keenum wins to Maxwell. The Walter Camp goes to Case Keenum. Bednarik goes to Jonas Mouton. The Gursky goes to James Brooks. The Case Keenum wins to O'Brien. Brandon Sane wins to Dope Walker. The Bolitnikoff, Titus Young. The Mackey goes to Febria Allen. Outland goes to DJ Fluker of Bama. Brady DeMille wins to Remington. James Brooks also wins the Lombardi. Jonas Mouton also wins the best linebacker. The Thorpe goes to Kendrick Presley. Groza, Kevin Gosselin of Fresno State. The guy goes to Bobby Dare. The guy goes to Bobby Dare of USC. The best returner goes to Marquise Godwin. Best returner goes to Marquise Goodwin of Texas. Take a look at the BCS Bowl games. We got TCU taking on Washington. The Fiesta Bowl is Texas A&M taking on West Virginia. The Orange Bowl is Miami taking on Navy. The Sugar Bowl is Virginia Tech taking on Boise State. And the National Championship, Bama taking on Ohio State. So both Kirk and Lee are rolling with Bama. I mean, they're pretty similar on paper, but Bama is just a whole nother like level. Take a look at what Greg McElroy is doing. 40 touchdowns, 5 picks. Mark Ingram, 1,400 yards on the ground, 13 touchdowns. Julio Jones, a 1,000-yard receiver with 9 touchdowns. Courtney Upshaw leading them in tackles. Green leading them in picks. Upshaw leading them in sacks. For the Buckeyes, though, Terrell Pryor, 37-9. 1,100 yards on the ground for Sane with 11 touchdowns. Posey, almost a 1,000-yard receiver, 8 touchdowns. And their defense is looking pretty good as well. They just don't create a lot of turnovers. So here in the Orange Bowl, Miami gets the job done, 21-7. They blanked Navy after they scored on them first, actually. They blanked them for 3 quarters after that, 21-7. Washington beats TCU in the Rose Bowl. Texas A&M beats the brakes off of West Virginia in the Fiesta Bowl. And Virginia Tech beats the brakes off of Boise State in the Sugar Bowl. And it is time for that Natty, boys. I see y'all out there in Arizona. It is a packed house here in Phoenix. You see it. We got a big-time game on our hands. Number 1 versus number 2. That crystal ball is on the line. Who is going to come out on top? Do you have Bama? Do you have Ohio State? Ohio State already has a Natty. Bama does not in this sim. All right, boys, the clock hits 000s in this one, and Ohio State wins. But Terrell Pryor and this offense come out here and get the job done. Bama was one of the toughest teams all season long, but in the end, they just couldn't get it done. So Terrell Pryor, 31 for 41, 295, 3 touchdowns and no picks. On the ground, Sane, 42 for 162, 2 touchdowns. Bourne had a touchdown as well through the air. Heavier Posey, 10 for 85, a touchdown. 8 for 86 and a touchdown for Stonebrenner. Torian Washington, 2 for 22 and a touchdown. 7 for 72 for Dane Sossenbecker. For Bama, Greg McElroy, 29 for 42, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. Having that in a loss is crazy. On the ground, Mark Ingram, 29 for 28. No touchdowns there. Julio Jones, 9 for 172, 2 touchdowns. Marquise Mays, 7 for 162, 2 touchdowns. Dial, 3 for 22 and a touchdown. Drake Kirkpatrick, 14 tackles. Nico Johnson had 11. They had a bunch of tackles for loss. Nico Johnson had a sack. No picks out here were caught by the defenses, but Ohio State gets it done. Moving on to NCAA 12. All right, so we got NCAA 12. Let's jump into it. All right, so we got one lone 99 this year. It's going to be Andrew Luck. Kellen Moore is at 98. LaMichael James, 97. Justin Blackman, Luke Kuechly, Alshon Jeffrey, Travis Lewis, Ryan Broyles, Terrell Pryor, Dante Hightower, Marcus Lattimore, Michael Floyd, Case Keenum is here still. We got RG3, Trent Richardson, Brandon Whedon, Landry Jones, Manti Te'o, Ray Armstrong. So, you know, we got some good talent here in the pool. Heisman watch list: Andrew Luck, Kellen Moore, LaMichael James, Denard Robinson, Justin Blackman. Oklahoma's your number 1 team in the nation, followed by Bama, Stanford, LSU, Oregon, Ohio State, Oklahoma State, Boise State, Texas A&M, Florida State. That's going to be your top 10. We got Wisconsin, Auburn, South Carolina, TCU, Michigan State, Nebraska, Virginia Tech, Arkansas, Miss State, Florida, Notre Dame, Texas, Mizzou, North Carolina State, and Arizona State to round out the top 25. So conference championship week is among us. Alabama plays number 4, South Carolina. Stanford is number 3 playing USC. Ohio State is number 2 playing Michigan. This is the type of conference championship week I want to see. We'll start right here. Florida State, Virginia Tech. This game is important. Florida State does bump off number 5 Virginia Tech, so that doesn't do them any favors. Then we got number 1 Alabama taking on number 4 South Carolina. This could be a big game for South Carolina. They lose after a valiant effort trying to come back, blanking Bama in the 4th quarter, but they can't get it done. 42-35 is your final score. They scored with 3:32 left, but then looks like Bama was able to control the clock. Then we got Stanford taking on USC. Can Andrew Luck finish the job here? He beats the brakes off of USC, 47-14. I'm anxious to see what Andrew Luck did in this game. 21-32, 329, 3 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, come on now. Then can Michigan get the big upset over Ohio State in the championship? They can't. The Bucks win 28-6. Looks like we're going to have another Bama-Ohio State national championship. Terrell Pryor wins the Heisman this year for Ohio State. He beats out Andrew Luck, Trent Richardson, Case Keenum, and Patshaw from TCU. Award winners include Terrell Pryor winning the Maxwell, the Walter Kemp going to Royce Pollard, Jordan Maben winning the Bednarik, the Nagurski goes to Mike Taylor, the O'Brien goes to Case Keenum, Trent Richardson wins the Doak Walker, the Blitnikoff for Royce Pollard, the Mackey goes to Jake Stoneburner, Mark Hughes gets to Outland, Andrew Miller gets to Remington, the Lombardi, Damian Square, the best linebacker, Dave Fagerin. Jordan Maben also wins the Thorpe, the Groza goes to Randy Bullock, the guy goes to Johnny Hecker, best returner goes to Greg Reed. All right, so for the second time in this sim, we get the same Natty back-to-back. At first, it was USC, West Virginia. This time, it's Ohio State, Alabama. But in that second matchup from West Virginia and USC, USC did pull out the win the second time. Does Bama have it in them to get the win? Game preview. Kirk Herbstreit's running with Ohio State for this game. Terrell Pryor, 33 for 8 touchdowns, almost 3,000 yards. He's also running for 800 yards on the ground with 11 touchdowns. Posey, 1,200 yards receiving with 14 touchdowns. And for Bama, A.J. McCarron, 32 for 5. Trent Richardson, 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns. Hanks, 1,000-yard receiver, 12 touchdowns of his own. All right, boys, another Natty, another blowout, 63-35. Bama gets their redemption, and they get the win here, and they are going to be the national champions. Terrell Pryor, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 26 for 38. Not bad on the ground. Boom Heron, 23 for 81, a touchdown for Berry, a touchdown for Posey. Through the air, Corey Brown, 8 for 119, 3 touchdowns. He had himself a day. For Bama, A.J. McCarron, 26 for 41, 435, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Trent Richardson ran for 190 on the ground with 4 touchdowns. Eddie Lacy came in, got a touchdown as well. Receiving-wise, Brandon Gibson, 8 for 102, 7 for 146 for Hanks. Norwood, 4 for 69, 2 touchdowns. Fancian made the most of his 1 catch for 4 yards and a touchdown. All right, boys, here we go. NCAA 13, a game I don't remember the greatest, but let's jump into it and see what we got. So take a look at the best players in the nation. No 99s again. Monty Ball is the best player, followed by Matt Barkley and Manti Te'o. Marcus Lattimore, Tyler Eifert are both 97s. Robert Woods is a 96. Star Latulele is a 95 with Kewan Short, Silas Red, Landry Jones, Aaron Murray, Sammy Watkins. Those are the 95s. Geno Smith is a 94. Taj Boyd is a 94. Nico Johnson, 94. Travis Frederick. It's some dogs here, but not the most talent that we've seen on any roster. On the Heisman watch list, we got Matt Barkley, Monty Ball, Tyrann Mathieu, Denard Robinson, and Landry Jones. And for the preseason, we're just going to go over the top 10. We got Bama, USC, Oregon, Oklahoma, Georgia, Arkansas, Florida State, Michigan, and West Virginia. So conference championship week here. Take a look at the ranked games. Georgia's number 2 taking on Mississippi State, which means Bama's more than likely out of the picture. USC's number 3. Wisconsin is number 1. They're taking on number 6 Michigan. There's a lot of implications here, man. So let's go ahead and assimilate this UGA game first. UGA handles business versus Miss State, 41-20. They get the dub. All right, so now we got number 3 taking on number 7, USC in Washington, and he upsets USC 45-35. Now we got Wisconsin taking on Michigan. Now this is going to be a tough game. And Wisconsin wets the bed. Number 6 Michigan gets the dub. Denard Robinson ran for a touchdown. Denard Robinson ran for a second touchdown. Smith ran for a touchdown. And Denard Robinson threw a touchdown in the fourth quarter to get the dub. So Wisconsin just lost. UGA won. USC lost. Louisiana Lafayette could be in the Natty. We're going to see how things work out. But Michigan got the win. Washington got the win. Florida State plays Miami. I guess we need to sim that game to see what's up. But, I mean, we know how the BCS is. Lafayette's probably going to get jumped, but let's go ahead and wait and see. Richard Samuel of UGA is going to be this year's Heisman winner. I don't remember a Richard Samuel, but he ran for 1,800 yards, 18 touchdowns. Matt Barkley finished second. I believe that's D'Anthony Thomas finishing third for Oregon, Monty Ball fourth, and James White. So Wisconsin had Monty Ball and James White finishing the top 5 of the Heisman. That's insane for teammates. Wisconsin then is not going to the Natty, but I want to see what these teammates did. 1,500 yards for Monty Ball, 1,000 yards for James White, 15 touchdowns for James White, 13 for Monty Ball. This quarterback had the easiest job ever. He still threw for 2,700 yards, 28 touchdowns, just 5 picks. But turn around, hand it off, and watch these two boys go to work. That's insane. I've never seen that in a sim in any video game. All right, guys. So after all this simming, who do we have in the Natty? Michigan, Georgia. I mean, I knew there was no way they was going to let Louisiana Lafayette go in that Natty. They do make the Sugar Bowl versus USC, and that sucks that they're not going to get a chance to play for the Natty because, you know what I mean, they're undefeated and everything like that. But we know how the BCS works, bro. Let's go ahead and take a look at the rankings. Louisiana Lafayette, wow. No, they actually got hold. They 100% got hold. They jumped from 6 to 2, but I get it because they beat number 1. They beat number 8, but they were number 2. They were going to go. But to jump from 6 to 2, that's strictly the computers and the BCS just trying to avoid, you know, the shellacking that UGA will put on, you know, them had they made it. But they deserve it. They're the only undefeated team still here in the mix, and they get jumped. You know what I'm saying? They only go up from 4 to 3, and damn, man, that's unfortunate. All right, let's see what Louisiana Lafayette does in the Sugar Bowl. Yeah, 48-6. They don't want that in the Natty. I understand it completely. The Rose Bowl, Washington, Wisconsin. Wisconsin wins 27-17, but I want to see what them boys did on the ground. 123 in a touchdown, 53 in a touchdown. We got South Carolina taking on Oklahoma. Oklahoma beat the brakes off South Carolina, but it's time for that Natty, baby. All right, man. We are here in Miami in the Orange Bowl for the Natty. It's going to be a good one, bro. I think this is going to be a really, really good game. We haven't had an opportunity to jump into a lot of games, but I think we will here. So we got 1:50 left in this ball game here, 24-24. UGA is in the driver's seat. Michigan has all 3 timeouts. They're not in field goal range. They're going to run the draw play, and Michigan is all over it. They're getting the rock here. So after an amazing punt from UGA, Michigan is starting on their own 5-yard line. They're going to go ahead and hand that off to Smith, who's been having a great game. He picks up 5. No huddle here by Michigan, naturally, as you would expect. Denard Robinson has a man in motion. This is tight end. He's going to get all the way to the slot. The blitz is coming. He reads it. He gets up out of there, getting back to the line of scrimmage. So how does Michigan play this? Do they play it safe? Do they try to pick up the first down? They're coming out in an offset eye. They are back to pass. Extra blocking. Denard with the dot, but it's dropped. All right, they're going to punt it with just under a minute left in this ball game. It's a booming kick across the 50. UGA is going to start in plus territory with the return. Under a minute left here. All 3 timeouts for UGA. UGA coming out in the shotgun. They got a wide receiver to his, running back to his right. Aaron Murray back to pass. Surveying. Dot over the middle, and number 12 holds on to the rock. That might be field goal range. All right, clock is ticking here. 3rd and 5. Michigan opted not to use any more of their timeouts here. And I think UGA doesn't just run down the clock. Murray's back to pass, surveying. He's going to check it down. First down and more for the tight end out of bounds. All right, so this is an ice kick for UGA here. 5 seconds left. The kick is up. It is good through the uprights. Georgia takes the lead with 3 seconds left in this ball game. So this game is all but over here, but crazier things have happened in college football games. They're going to actually return this one. This is for the ball game, and it is over. UGA rejoices and celebrates here as they are officially BCS national champions. Our first time actually getting a celebration on the field here, you know what I mean, one of these older games, and UGA gets the job done. I can't believe the parity that we have seen throughout this whole entire sim. Not one team is dominated. We've had multiple teams go to multiple national championships, but no team is just like clear-cut winning every single time. So Aaron Murray, 16 for 26, 191, a touchdown, no picks on the ground. Richard Samuel, the Heisman winner, 34 for 115, 2 touchdowns. They fed that man. A touchdown through the air for Malcolm Mitchell. Defensively, Gillard, 11 tackles, 5 solos, 6 for loss. Avery Jones had a sack. Kari Rambo caught a pick. For Michigan, Denard Robinson, 16 for 30, 211, 2 touchdowns and a pick. On the ground, Vincent Smith, 16 for 147 and a touchdown. Through the air, Drew Dilio, 6 for 86, 4 for 65 for Roundtree. Gallen, 2 for 9 and a touchdown. 2 for 35 and a touchdown for Brandon Moore. Defensively, Kenny Demons, 12 tackles, 5 solo, 7 assists, 1 for loss. He also had a sack, no picks for Michigan, and we move on to NCAA 14. All right, boys, every time I say when NCAA 14, I'm going to delete, revamp, and play just a regular 14. I forget every single time, but you know what game we're here to play. We played it for 10 years. All right, guys, so we only got 199 this year, and that's Jadeveon Clowney. We got Anthony Barr, 98, Jake Matthews, 98, Eric Ebrons, 97 with Teddy B, Sammy Watkins, Greg Robinson, 96, Marquise Lee, Blake Bortles, Johnny Manziel, Mike Evans, David Yankee. Marcus Mariota's a 96. We got Darquise Denard. We got Taylor Lewan. We got Jameis Winston, Khalil Mack, CJ Mosley, Clinton Dix. We got Derek Carr, Chris Borland. We already know a lot of these guys are still in the NFL right now. You know what I mean? At least, some of the bigger name guys. So it's no surprise. Jadeveon Clowney actually had a good game in the playoffs this past week. Take a look at that top 10. Bama, Ohio State, Stanford, Texas A&M, Georgia, Oregon, Notre Dame, South Carolina, Clemson, Florida. Now, we're not going to look at the Heisman watch list because it's all jacked up because it's revamped. Things get scrambled. But let's simulate and see what we get out of this. So let's see. Conference Championship week. Do we have any big games here that matter? Florida State versus Georgia Tech. Oregon versus USC. So first up, we got undefeated Florida State taking on Georgia Tech. They squeaked this one out in overtime. Jameis Winston with a 5-yard rush to win it. And then we got USC taking on number 1 Oregon. Jameis Winston taking on Marcus Mariota in the Natty. Let's get it. Marcus Mariota beats out Jameis Winston, who won the Natty in real life, so they kind of flip-flop. It was a close race, but Mariota, 2,800 yards, 815 on the ground, 43 total touchdowns. He beat out Winston. He beat out Hill, Money Manziel, and Davis from South Carolina. Take a look at those award winners. Mariota also won the Maxwell, the Walter Camp. The Bednarik goes to Marcus Mallett. He also wins the Nagurski. Marcus Mariota wins the O'Brien. Doak Walker goes to Casey Carrier. The Biletnikoff goes to Mike Evans. The Mackey, Nick O'Leary. The Outland goes to Brian Stork. The Remington as well. The Lombardi goes to Lewis Nix. The Buckus goes to Marcus Mallett as well. Jimmy Legree wins the Thorpe. Groza to Brendan Gibbons. The Guy goes to Alejandro Maldonado. And the Jet goes to Christian Jones of Bama. All right, boys, here we go. We got FSU. We got Oregon. It looks like we're at the Rose Bowl, so this is pretty much a home game for them boys. But it should be a fun one. Hopefully we can get some gameplay out of it. All right, guys, so down 14, 4:22 left in this ball game. Jameis Winston in this offense needs to find a way to punch it in. They got to score a touchdown here in this game. Jameis back to pass, surveying. He's going to hit O'Leary first down. Jameis now faces a 3rd and 5 here. They're 6 for 14 on 3rd downs. So they've been playing well on these 3rd downs. He's back to pass. They only rush 3. He has all day to throw, surveying, getting out of the pocket. He's got to get rid of the ball. Throws off of his back foot harmlessly to the ground. All right, we got a 4th and 5 here. Jameis Winston in shotgun. This game isn't over. I believe they can pick this up. He goes to O'Leary, who's not going to be able to cut it up, and they turn it over on downs. All right, guys, so the clock hits triple zeros in this one, and Oregon wins by 10, 37-27. So Marcus Mariota doesn't only win the Heisman, he wins the Natty as well, and they go undefeated, and we continue to have different national championship winners. And like I said, man, that shit is pretty dope. Marcus Mariota, 22 for 38, 276, a touchdown, no picks. D'Anthony Thomas, 20 for 91, a touchdown. Mariota also had a touchdown on the ground. Through the air, Josh Huff, 9 for 80. D'Anthony Thomas, 5 for 81 in a touchdown. And for Florida State, Jameis Winston had a rough day at the office. 2 touchdowns, no picks, 364. On the ground, Devontae Freeman, 27 for 133. Jameis had a touchdown as well. Receiving-wise, Rashad Green, 5 for 104. Kelvin Benjamin found the end zone along with Kenny Shaw. Jalen Ramsey has 6 tackles out here. That's just a name I wanted to highlight because I forgot he was on the team. And we're moving on to our most current and final game, College Football 25. So take a look at the top 25 coming in here, boys. Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, Ole Miss, Bama, Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan, Mizzou. Then we got Florida State, Utah, LSU, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Arizona, Clemson, Oak State, Kansas State, Louisville, Kansas, NC State, Miami, Texas A&M, USC. This is current day, but still we know Travis Hunter, the best player in the nation, 99 overall, 95 speed, 99 excel. This is after an update. Ashton Jeanty's a 98. Tyler Warren's a 98, 97 for Will Johnson, 97 for Tate Ratledge. Jay Higgins from Iowa is a 97, 96 for Kelvin Banks Jr. James Pierce Jr. is a 96, Caleb Downs a 96, Ollie Gordon 95, Jack Sawyer is a 95, Xavier Watts is a 95, Quishon Judkins is a 95, Fannin from Bowling Green is a 95. It's some dogs out here, boys. We know that. Now, this is actually my first sim post this update. So I wonder how the Heisman voting and winner is actually going to come about. Travis Hunter leads the way for the Heisman watch for Ashton Jeanty, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and we got Tate McMillan. All right, boys. So as we know, Conference Championship Week works a little bit differently now because we officially have a college football playoff. And right now, the buys will be Ole Miss if they win the SEC, Oregon if they win the Big Ten, Miami if they win the ACC, and Tulane if they win, what is it? Is it the American or Conference USA? I forget. The other teams that wouldn't have the bye, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina State, Utah, Colorado, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State. So we got Utah taking on Kansas State, Tulane taking on North Texas, Ole Miss taking on Tennessee, SMU taking on Miami, and Oregon taking on Penn State. I think if Ole Miss loses, they're still in. Miami loses, they're probably still in. And if Oregon loses, they're probably still in. So Cam Ward is going to be this year's player of the year, 3,200 yards, 34 touchdowns, just 2 picks. Cam Ward is also going to be this season's Heisman. Wow, I've never seen him win it before. Cam Ward is also going to win the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm. Cam Ward is also going to win the best quarterback. Damian Martinez wins best running back, 156 carries, 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns. More award winners. Head coach of the year goes to Tulane. Best defensive player goes to Cedrine Perkins of Ole Miss. Best DB goes to John Saunders Jr. of Ole Miss. Best receiver goes to Money Parks of Utah. Lombardi goes to Jordan Birch of Oregon. Best DN goes to Jordan Birch of Oregon. Best interior lineman goes to Tate Ratledge. Best tight end goes to Oscar Delp. Bros Award goes to Sam Bradshaw. Best linebacker goes to Perkins of Ole Miss. Best center, Jonah Moheen. The Luke Rose Award goes to Alec McPherson of Auburn. Best punter goes to Jeremy Crawshaw of Florida. Best returner goes to George Pettaway of James Madison. So this is what the bracket is looking like. So we got Ole Miss, Miami moves up to number 2, Oregon to 3, Tulane at 4. We got Texas taking on Georgia, North Carolina State taking on Penn State, Colorado taking on Notre Dame, and Ohio State taking on Utah. So in the first round of the playoffs, Georgia beats Texas 35-17. NC State upsets Penn State. Colorado upsets Notre Dame, and Ohio State beats Utah. So we got Georgia, Tulane, NC State, Ole Miss, Colorado, Oregon, Ohio State, Miami. And in that quarterfinal, UGA narrowly beats Tulane. Ole Miss handles NC State with ease. Same with Oregon over Colorado, and Ohio State beats Miami by 7. So our final 4 is going to be UGA, Ole Miss, Oregon, Ohio State. All right, boys. So in the Cotton Bowl, Ohio State is handled by Oregon here 24-7, and Oregon has punched their tickets to the national championship. So Will Howard only threw the ball 7 times in this game, 88 yards, a touchdown, 71% completion percentage on the ground. They couldn't really get anything going. Receiving wise, Jeremiah Smith, 2 for 72 and a touchdown. Dylan Gabriel, 19 for 28, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Looks like Oregon dominated time of possession. Jordan James had a touchdown on 14 carries. Receiving wise, Evan Stewart, 6 for 75 and a touchdown. Holden, 4 for 61, 4 for 67 for Tez Johnson. Orange Bowl was an ugly one. UGA still found a way to get it done. 13-0. This was a disgusting game. Ole Miss was in the red zone a few times. It was nothing to really jump in and see because it was like drive, pick, drive, pick. It was 3-0 all the way into like the third quarter. Table is set. We got the Oregon Ducks taking on the UGA Bulldogs. Let's get to it. So here we are, BCS Natty. One of these teams are going to join Ohio State to have multiple championships in this sim. UGA won 2 games ago. Oregon won just the last game in NCAA 14. Let's see who leaves it all out here on the field. And in the end, boys, Oregon gets it done in back-to-back games. The first team to get it done in back-to-back games, as they easily beat UGA in this one. UGA's offense continues to just let them down. They could not score enough points, and Dylan Gabriel and the Ducks get the job done. 33-16. So look at the stats. UGA scored all of their points in the second quarter. They were shut out for 3 other quarters. They moved the ball well, couldn't score. Carson Beck, You know what I mean? That makes me so excited as a Miami fan. Carson Beck just can't do anything, but you know what I mean? He didn't have the worst day. They couldn't get anything going on the ground. And receiving wise, Dylan Bell 9 for 114 and a touchdown. That's who held it down for them defensively. Williams led them in tackles. He also had a sack. They didn't catch any picks. Dylan Gabriel 3 touchdowns, 64% completion percentage, 261 yards, 11 for 17 on the ground, 76 yards for Jordan James. Receiving wise, Tez Johnson 3 for 129, 2 touchdowns. Trayshawn Holden 3 for 87 and a touchdown. Defensively for Oregon, Jacobs and Florence led them in tackles. They were in the backfield, 2 tackles for loss, and they got a lot of sacks on Carson Beck, 5 to be exact. They didn't catch any picks, but what they did do is get a very easily convincing win. This sim was extremely fun, and I honestly couldn't believe the parity that we saw throughout this whole entire sim. No team for a multiple amount of games was just out here straight dominating. And that's honestly the beauty, I think, that we're going to start to see IRL with NIL in the transfer portal. So just to recap all of our Natty winners, boys: NCAA 2002, Michigan State. NCAA 2003 was the Florida Gators. NCAA football 2004 was Ohio State. NCAA 05 was LSU. NCAA 06 was Texas. NCAA 07 was Oklahoma. NCAA 08 West Virginia. NCAA 09 USC. NCAA 10 UF. NCAA 11 was Ohio State. NCAA 12 was Bama. NCAA 13 was UGA. And then both NCAA 14 and College Football 25 was the Oregon Ducks. If you want to see a video where I played Dylan Gabriel's entire career from college all the way through the NFL, click right here. And if you enjoy rebuilds and want to see me try to build the worst team in the SEC in just 5 seasons, click right here.